Next week on Hot Spring Hunters, Wonderhussy drives 10 miles up a canyon in a flash flood, trying to discover a new hot spring. Hey, Wonderhussy here. I'm up in central Nevada, outside Tonopah, off US 6, one of the most desolate parts of the country that I've ever been in. And I actually camped here last night, right back behind that rest area that I just pulled into. It's called the Saulsbury Wash Rest Area, but there's a Forest Service road that goes up behind it into Saulsbury Wash. And, well, I was able to find a really nice little spot to pull over and camp for the night. Very peaceful. The only downside was there was no cell signal, but, you know, because there was no cell signal, I had to make do with old-fashioned amusements like books. So I whipped out my old benchmark atlas and just started doing some recon, looking around, like wondering what was farther up this Saulsbury Wash. So there's the rest area, and then I was camped like, oh gosh, maybe where the road number is, 056. But I looked, if you go a little bit farther up the road here, it says there's a warm spring. Oh my gosh! If you know me, you know I'm nuts about hot springs, natural hot springs, and warm springs too. I mean, of course I prefer a nice and twisty hot spring, but I'll take a warm spring if that's all there is. But there's actually a bunch of them in this part of the country. In fact, if you go a little bit farther east on US 6, you come to a ghost town called Warm Spring that at one time had a really nice resort there with a friggin' swimming pool full of natural hot spring water, and it's not warm either. It's actually hot. It's a full-size swimming pool that's full of hot water that just comes bubbling naturally out of the ground. Unfortunately, it's closed down now. They used to let you go in there and soak as long as you cleaned up after yourself, but I drove by it earlier this morning and it says keep out, so I'm not sure what the legal status is there now, so use your own common sense. But anyway, I'm gonna drive up this Saulsbury Wash Road and just see if I can't find a little warm spring of my own. Oh look, here's where I camped last night. You can see there's just a little turnoff off the road with a fire pit, still covered in my tire tracks. It was a pretty good campsite. Like I said though, no cell signal. Anyway, I camped there last night and I wanted to drive up this morning and check on this warm spring, but I didn't have a ton of gas left and I had some other stuff I needed to do in Tonopah, which isn't that far down the highway. So I went into Tonopah, I gassed up, and now I'm back ready to find this warm spring. Let's go. Now, it's only supposed to be 10 miles up the road, so I set my trip odometer, and we've gone 1 mile already. So far, it's a pretty well-graded dirt road. Like I said, though, it has been raining, and there's some weather on the horizon, so definitely got to be mindful of that, because I don't want to get stuck in a wash during a flash flood. Okay, we've arrived here at the first spring on the map. The map shows it as being called Mud Spring. I don't know if there's actually any standing water here, and I don't really feel like wading back into that thicket to find out, because it's just a mud spring, it's not a warm spring. But this does look like an awesome little campsite. You can see there's a fire ring here, and I'm not sure if this tree is dead or if it will provide leafy shade again come spring, summertime. But cool little place to camp, and I'll keep that in mind for future reference. Okay, back on the road. Let's see what we find next. Okay, now we're at what the map called the Upper Mud Spring. That looks a lot bigger, and we can actually see there is some standing water here. Now, this doesn't look very inviting to get in, especially because, well, there's a lot of cattle out here. I think this is open range. So it's probably all kind of poop and pee in here. Very unsanitary. But I'm going to stick my finger in anyways, just to see if it's actually warm or what. Woo! Ooh, it's actually cold. I thought it would at least be warm from the sun. But gosh, it was like putting your finger in a glass of ice water. It was pretty cold. Huh, interesting. Now I feel like I need to go boil my finger. Although ironically, I'm filming this on March 11th. 2020, and we're in the thick of the coronavirus scare. Everybody's freaking out about coronavirus. So I decided to take off on a little solo road trip around, gosh, a very desolate part of Nevada. And there's not very many people out here, and there's not even very many people traveling through this part of the country. So I feel like this is like the safest place you could be, you know what I mean? I'll take a little bit of E. coli or Giardia from the cows over coronavirus. Anyway, I thought I would just hike up this way a little bit to see if there was some kind of better spring up here, but I guess not. Looks like it's just a cow path. And again, it's a very dense thicket of, I don't know if those are like, well, bushes, trees growing here. So obviously there's plenty of groundwater, but no hot spring. So I'm gonna go ahead and make my way back to the car and continue on up the wash. Oh gosh, look at that weather moving in. Yikers. I don't think it'll move up here fast enough, but I'm gonna get out of here as quickly as I can. Meanwhile, this second spring is also a campsite. You can see there's a little fire ring here. And well, it even looks like there was a collapsed miner's shack. See what I mean? It looks like at one time somebody actually lived in a little shack out here by this second spring. It's probably a pretty nice place, but unfortunately we'll never know because, whew, it's toast now. But oh my gosh, look at this valley. It's amazing. And then right next to this little, well, it almost looks like it must be a creek or a river that's flowing down this canyon because like all this stuff goes on quite a ways. Anyway, we're going to continue on up the canyon about another 5 miles, and that's where this warm spring is supposed to be. I know you probably think I'm nuts for going through all this trouble to find a friggin' warm spring, but man, I'm a hot spring junkie, but I've never discovered my own hot spring. I recently met someone who discovered a hot spring and built it himself. I won't say which one. He kept it all to himself for a year too. And then finally word got out, and now, well, even I've been there, and I even made a video about it. It's on my channel somewhere. Just won't say which one. Anyway, I always thought it'd be cool to discover my own hot spring. So even though clearly I won't be the first person that's ever been up here, at least it's not on the hot spring radar or even the warm spring radar. And I just think that would be really cool. Okay, back on the road. It says we've gone about 6 miles. A little bit of that was detour, but around 6 miles. So should only have about 4 more to go. Okay, 1 more mile. Stupidly, I forgot to pin the location. I looked at it on Google Satellite when I had signal earlier this morning in Tonopah, but I forgot to pin it on my map, and I don't even know if I downloaded the map for this area, so my navigation screen isn't giving me much help. So we're gonna have to rely on the old-fashioned peepers to spot this one. Looking for, well, I still got another half a mile to go before 10 miles. So I'm just kind of looking for a big cluster of trees, I guess. Okay, the odometer says we've gone 10 miles, but we did have a couple detours, you know, looking at the other springs, and I realized that warm spring does actually show up on my navigation screen, and we're not quite there yet, so I'm going to keep going until my arrow shows me right up on the warm spring, and then we'll assess the situation. Okay, we're at the point on the map that says warm spring, and there is a big pond here. Now, again, it doesn't look overly appetizing to get in because, well, I guess this is open rangeland, and, well, I was snacking on beef jerky as I drove up here, so I suppose I have no place to complain. Now, I do have a thermometer in the car, but I'm going to do this the old-fashioned way with my finger. Let's see if this water is warm. Could this finally be the day that Wonderhussy discovers a new hot spring? Next week on Hot Spring Hunters, Wonderhussy drives 10 miles up a canyon in a flash flood trying to discover a new hot spring. Let's see. Oh man, that's not warm. It's about the same temperature as the other one. Maybe a little tiny bit warmer, but it's just the temperature of like a glass of water that you would drink. Cold. Colder than room temperature. Boo! Wah, wah, wah. Back to the drawing board for Wonderhussy. Man, I've been trying to find a hot spring for years now. And, well, at first I didn't make videos about it because I thought it was kind of boring if I found or went to a place and then it turned out not to be a hot spring. But now I think it's kind of fun. So I recently made a video about going to Jackrabbit Spring out in Ash Meadows. And that was a bust, although that one was warmer than this. Now I've come up here and this was a bust. Well, gosh, no telling what the next hot or warm spring I venture to will be. It might finally be a winner. Tune in next week when Hot Spring Hunters goes after another hot spring. See you next Wednesday.